Hello and welcome to another episode of the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. This week, we drive a supercar, we compare two fancy EVs, we talk to Chevy about an EV, and Cadillac's bread and butter gets updated. But first, a word from our sponsor.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Your elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a driveway entirely its own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to hand this off to Mike because he got to drive something super, super subtle this week.
Yeah, it was the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato, which it's a Lamborghini, it's a Huracan, and it's a crazy off-road version with all this extra body cladding and bits. And then to make it even more subtle, they painted it bright yellow, because what other color should a Lamborghini be? It was a lot of fun, I'm not going to lie. It's a car I could never afford, and it's a car that basically makes no sense being a supercar that has all-terrain tires and go off-road, but that just seems to be the fad right now. I do make the argument what they've done to it actually makes it more everyday usable, because it has the same ground clearance as a Kona EV. So it's going to be able to tackle most stuff around the city. If you lived in an area where there's snow, like light snow, and you want to drive it all year round, I mean, you could run some snows. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, the V10 is just amazing. It's so sad that engine's dying. It was the first time I really got to drive it, and it'll be the last. But I've driven a lot of EVs. You have too. And we've driven a lot of EVs that are doing like 0 to 60 in the low 2-second range by now, or high 2s at the worst. And it's violent, those cars, but that's about it. It's violent, and then you're like, whoa. With this thing, it does 0 to 60 in like, Lamborghini says like 3.5 seconds, but I'd say it's probably lower threes. But when you hit the gas, the sound that erupts behind your head, I can't believe it's street legal. It's so loud, the whole car shakes. Every time you change gear in the 7-speed dual clutch, you can just like feel the gear change like through your body. You see the world flying by. It's an experience no EV can replicate. And it's, one day they'll be gone, but enjoy them while you can, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven the Ioniq 5N, and we're going to be driving that later this summer. And I feel like, yeah, it's with its fake engine noises, which, like, no doubt make it more enjoyable. It kind of points out what you're just saying is you need that. Like, going quick in a straight line just on its own is one thing, but you need the visceral appeal. And who does that better than Lamborghini?
That's what I was saying in the review. It attacks like 4 of your senses. I mean, you're not tasting it, but you're hearing it, you're feeling it. You can kind of, it's not like you can smell it, but it's just a full on attack. Whereas an EV, it's like you get thrown back and you see like, holy cow. And then that's it. Like I said, noises, and Porsche's been working on that too with their EVs, and it helps, but it's just something in the back of your mind that knows that this is just not, it doesn't need to be there. Maybe they should just let those electric motors whirl at high pitched whine and it'd be cooler. But yeah, that V10 something.
That's what Dodge is going to do.
Well, yeah, they're going to have the air compressor thing that pumps real air, making real sound, but it's not needed. But at least it's real noise. But
yeah,
everything's turbo these days too, like everything except for like E6 SUVs. So driving a naturally aspirated 600 plus horsepower car too, it's just that linear feel. I mean, it has it. I guess the Corvette still has it, but I forgot, because I haven't driven something in so long like that, just how good a big, meaty NA engine can be.
Yeah. Well,
and it better be for $300,000.
I was going to say, in summary, do you think it's worth it? I mean, I know it's a ridiculous amount of money, but
I mean, I can't talk because neither you or I are near that tax bracket. We could combine ourselves and use multiples and we still won't make it. But I do feel if you are there and you have the means to get like a toy in that price, this Ferrari, McLaren, like that's what you should be buying, because part of the enjoyment is it's flashy and loud and people see it and they're like kind of wowed. I mean, where I live, these aren't common. So I was like celebrity everywhere I went. I couldn't get gas. I couldn't get dog food without people being all over me. I know there's faster cars and more subtle, but if you're going big, get something like this. So
That's
that's my
a
summary.
gotcha.
Oh,
I mean,
and one more thing. It's incredible how easy it is to drive. I mean, when the NSX first came out, that was this big thing and it kind of changed the industry. Like I putted through traffic for like an hour, barely moving, and it was fine. Like the seat's comfy, you got tons of space, the AC works. Cars have come a long way.
couldn't have said that about Lamborghinis in the 90s.
No. Getting a Countach if you don't know what we're talking about.
Talking about reliability, I'm going to move on to the next thing. It's the Range Rover Velar, which actually, I mean, I'm cracking a joke at Land Rover's expense. I had no issues whatsoever with the Velar. It was a vehicle. It was definitely one of the SUVs out there. That's
praise.
It does
praise,
nothing wrong. It's just that, well, I mean, I summed it up. You can just be whelmed. That's what this car is.
It's funny you say that because we'll get to it later, and I'm sitting literally right beside it. I'll show later. But the vehicle I drove to where I am, because I'm obviously not in my home, it's the same. Like so many SUVs that are like that now. They're perfectly capable of what they're supposed to do. And it's like, I don't know what else to say. Like, there's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing incredible. And then, unless you compare 8 of them at once, which we like to do,
it's true.
You can't find the difference. Yeah.
So
no, I get it.
So I had never driven a Velar, and I wanted to fill that knowledge gap. And this is the P400, which is the most powerful one you can get. There was like a year where they sold it with the V8, and I guess no one wanted that, so it stopped. But this is the high-power, mild hybrid inline 6, and it's such a sweet engine. So that's good. No complaints there. It's paired to the ZF Auto, which is also one of the best in the business. Very, very smooth. It's a little bit bigger than an X3 or a GLC, just a little bit. And so someone who wants just that much more space, great. It's just that it doesn't feel special despite being over 80,000 US and just cracking 6 figures in Canada. So you're in like X3M territory at that point for a vehicle that doesn't have the same pedigree. And the problem is the infotainment. And I don't want to be one of those people who complains about, oh, there's no physical buttons, but there's literally none inside. There's a button for park on the transmission shifter, and there's the start stop for the engine. And that's it, other than things on the wheel. Everything is done in the screen, and it just requires a whole lot of digging around. Like if you're adjusting the climate and you're on anything other than a perfectly smooth road, you're going to make a mistake. I had weird issues with CarPlay where you had to click the CarPlay icon, then click another thing to take you to navigation or music in particular. It really discouraged me from wanting to interact with the car, and that feels like a miss. Like the interior is great, like all modern Range Rovers, but if I can't interact with the car, I'm never really going to gel with it.
So 3 quick things. One, you're right about the drivetrain. I had it in the Defender, I guess almost 2 years ago, last year. I think it's the most underrated drivetrain because there's so many, turbo 6-cylinder 8 speeds out there, but it feels powerful. It feels smooth. It's decent on gas. So, and how you said it doesn't feel special. I think with that vehicle in particular, its thing is it looks special. And when it first came out, I remember it was amazing. The thing is, it's getting kind of old now. It still looks great, but I think that I just bought it because of that wow factor is kind of going away. So it needs an update. I guess it's probably Range Rover's oldest vehicle because the big guy is new recently, and the Sport's new recently. So
the Evoque is older.
Oh,
yeah.
Shows
me
how much
is still going.
About that guy. Yeah. Right, the Evoque is still a thing.
Yeah.
Hold on. There's a.
Uh-oh.
Not coming here though. Okay,
well, you are near a racetrack. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm 10 minutes away. near
Okay,
a bunch of private
that still
schools.
counts as near.
Yeah.
In Toronto, that's a block away. Um, so that's pretty much all I have to say about the Velar. I mean, it's fine. Oh, one other thing. Don't ever put it in sport mode. Oh, it has one of the harshest, most unnecessarily harsh rides I've witnessed in an SUV in a long time. So, not a win.
All right.
On to the
Okay.
next thing. The next one.
Oh, yes.
Both of us drove these, although it was. I spent the most time with them, so I ended up writing up this comparison. It is the Cadillac Lyric versus the Genesis electrified GV70.
Yeah, it's an unlikely comparison on the surface by just saying the names, but these do
Mhm.
compete size-wise, price-wise, power-wise. Like they're on top of each other, and I think it's because a lot of people view the Lyric as bigger than it is, and the GV70 as smaller than it is. So I think when you get them together, it's like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, the Lyric is bigger, deceptively bigger. Because I know when we got together to shoot these, it's like, well, yeah, the Cadillac's bigger. It's a little. No, it's almost a foot longer.
oh wow,
It just doesn't look like it because it has just sloping roofline. And I think the ubiquity of seeing the GV70 in gas version makes us kind of just look past the size of it
yeah,
because it's pretty big for a compact SUV. So yeah, they are pretty close. They're close in just about everything except range, where the GV70 is 236 miles. Excuse me, and the Cadillac is 307. So that is a significant jump.
yeah. Especially when you're not dealing with entry rear drives, you're dealing with the dual motor all-wheel drive. So yeah, Cadillac's done a good job with that range. I know
Mhm.
going into this, you and I both were thinking the Genesis should win this because we like the car and we didn't, and ignorance to us, we didn't know anything really about how the Lyric was. And I think it's fair to say we both are very impressed. I really enjoyed driving it. And I mean, it has Super Cruise, which I'm a big fan of, but the inside and out make you feel like, oh, I'm in like a special SUV that's electric. But
Mhm.
the driving experience is still pretty normal, which I think what EVs need to be because I think at first they're trying to be too different, and that's why people don't like them. But if they get in and it just is quiet, but it drives like a Cadillac, then that's a winner.
Yeah, the Lyric really impressed me. It feels like the next step in the brand's evolution. It feels like a chance for them to sort of reinvent themselves and lean in on those strengths of yeah, it's a really good cruiser. Don't get me wrong, Cadillac can do sports sedans with the best of them. Your favorite modern car as an example.
Yep.
But this was just it was really impressive. There was one little I had a quality issue with the Lyric where there was a rattle inside from some trim, which sort of felt, you know, not appropriate for a car of this price. And there was a lot of suspension noise. But beyond that, it was really well done. And like you mentioned, Super Cruise is fantastic. Genesis has nothing to touch that. And
I just
GM
spent
is,
a week in a 25 GV80, and they try to help you assist lane changes, but it is not Super Cruise. You're right.
yeah, yeah. And General Motors is currently offering a pretty substantial discount in the US on Lyrics. And that erases one of the other issues, which is that it's more pricey than the GV70. Um, yeah, I went into this. I mean, we're both members of the Automobile Journalists Association of Canada, and the Genesis was the electric SUV of the year. Cadillac beat it. I
Yeah. No, I, and like you said, it's a direction that they're going, like a new direction, and we don't just mean EV. I mean, yeah, the optics coming, and then I mean the big Celestic, but that doesn't really count. But yeah, I think they can lean on the styling and engineering for their gas models too. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the CT4, XT4, and XT5 and XT6 all sort of follow that down the road, and that would be fantastic. Yeah,
Mhm.
big win for Cadillac there, and I'm seeing them around, but not as much as other ones. I don't see many Genesis either, but I think it's sort of people don't realize it. They did a good job because they just see Cadillac and they assume, oh, they can't do electric, so I'll move on.
Yeah, it was great. So Altium vehicle that we really enjoyed. I mentioned that for no particular reason based on who we might be talking to later in this episode. Moving on, because we're gonna keep going. Now we're past all the driving, and we're gonna talk about the little bits of news this week. So first off, hey, this has been a theme in the last couple episodes. A car is dead.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's not dead and that's it. It's just being replaced. And Audi's kind of they're stopped having the A4, A5 name, and it's going to just be the A5 range. Which is funny because I don't know, a month, 2 months ago when I talked about the 440 Grand Coupe, I was saying how BMW, like the 3 Series, is kind of redundant because that Grand Coupe is so good. So I think Audi was kind of like, all right.
Yeah, I appreciate that Audi every couple years decides to just mess with all of us and completely change its naming or trim conventions. Like a few years ago, it became those double digits for all the trims. Now we have a whole new approach to its numbering for its models because evens are EVs and odds are ICE. So yeah, I mean, it looks handsome. It feels like a pretty natural evolution of what the old A4 was. This is the last ground up ICE developed platform. I mean, yeah, it I don't know. The current A4 seems really old, so we'll see how this compares. I mean, maybe we'll see. We don't drive Audis.
It's funny how you said like it evolves. Like that's always been Audi. Their styling doesn't dramatically change. It just kind of modernized the theme and the engines and stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the new one does. But I feel the company was fully going electric, and now a lot of automakers are kind of realizing maybe they need to keep gas around. And every week we sort of hear someone saying, well, we might not hit our goal of this. We're reevaluating it. So we'll see.
It's a very North American view because Europe is still going strong on EVs. But I mean, yeah, we'll see. On to the next EV. Light updates for one of my favorite EVs, the Lucid Air. Not a whole lot is changing for 2025 because the company is, of course, focusing on launching its SUV, the Gravity. But there have been some further efficiencies. Even though this was already one of the most efficient EVs on the road, the Lucid Air Pure will now do 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which translates to a long distance.
Good. Translates to good.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I really have to say about that one is, and there's a bit more standard equipment.
So the Lucid Air, the best and one of the most expensive EVs on the market's your favorite? How could that be? It's like me praising a Lamborghini or something.
Hold on. The Pure is only $70,000 US, which is actually very reasonable for what you get.
It is.
It's like 430 horsepower. It's pretty spacious. The
Lucid
Sapphire.
Lucid and Porsche both have EV showcases where I am. We'll get into later, but I walked by the Lucid guys. I was like, oh, which model's that?
Fun.
All right, moving on.
Onward. Yes.
Hey,
more EV.
EVs.
More EV news.
So this is no surprise. Yeah. Like, I know they're not the same company and they try to really differentiate themselves, but when one gets a product that it's getting. The EV6 GT came out. Oh, the Ioniq 5N and the EV9 exists. So Hyundai is going to get their 3-row electric SUV. I mean, it just makes sense to spread costs. And guess what? I think Genesis showed off a big 3-row SUV recently. So what do you know?
Yeah, and you know, back when the Veloster, wait, no.
Yeah, no. I think Kia was like, we like having 4 doors.
Yes. So anyway, sorry, continue on with the what's this all about, Mike?
Well, it's basically what I said. Hyundai's getting their version of the EV9. I mean, yes, it's not the exact same. It's not gonna, not everything's gonna match up, but that's what they need next. They have the Kona and then they have the Ioniq family. So this, I would assume, would be like the Ioniq 7, 9. I don't know what they'll call it.
I mean, Ioniq 9 is a little on the nose.
yeah.
But
I don't know if
maybe.
Yeah, because I mean, they could call it 7 because it would probably be a 7-seater. But there's 7 you would think would be like a step bigger than the 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of space.
Way up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, All right. Well, yeah, we'll definitely see. On to the next thing. You get to talk about this one because it's another big 3-row SUV, but a little different from that one.
Well, yeah. So in a big U-turn from our EV talk, we're going into the Cadillac Escalade. So it got what GM calls a major refresh. So I can't remember the exact wording they have, but basically they have their minor refresh where, like taillights and bumper get fixed, to major. And this one's major because the rear and front are updated. Tying into the Lyric earlier, it has the very Lyric looking front end. So the Escalade was pretty much, I think, the last one left with horizontal headlights. So now it gets the vertical that pretty much the whole line of SUVs has. It doesn't look crazy different. I don't think people would notice the difference if they didn't know the Escalade, but I like it. In the rear end, they reworked the taillights and stuff, and it looks nice. But the big news is inside. It gets basically more or less the interior from the Escalade IQ. So it has that 55-inch dash from side to side, which consists of, try to get the numbers right, a 35-inch dash that has a driver information center and the infotainment, and then the passenger gets their own 25-inch screen in front, sort of like Porsche's been doing, where they can do their own infotainment, whatever they want over there, aside from the driver. And then everything else on the inside's been updated to look fancier and nicer.
Okay.
But big news. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Big news?
Well, the big news is mechanically nothing's changed. So you're like, oh, 420 horsepower, 10-speed auto. But that also means the Escalade V still lives on. They're still making a 658 horsepower or something supercharged V8 version of the Escalade, which is awesome. And you can get it in either size too. It's still got the regular and the super long ESV.
Sweet. I just want to point out that the people in the passenger seat are going to get a screen that's almost twice the size of the TV I had in college.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's all.
Screen. Yeah. I love how like Ford and Lincoln were so big about their screen. Kind of like, well, we got a wider car, so we're gonna make a wider screen. Because that 55, like, it's not fitting in, I think, any other product.
No.
Nothing's got that width. So.
And I can't remember what the hyperscreen is in Mercedes. It's 50 something as well, but
yeah, that's true. And that one curves a bit, so they get a couple of extra inches in there.
All right, moving on. This is something that I actually did a week or two ago. Just a quick little update for people. Yeah, a quick little update for people who may enjoy sim racing, or actually, to that end, motorsport. I went and watched the first live event of the Gran Turismo World Series in Montreal 2 weeks ago, and it was very fascinating. I hadn't been to one in 5 years, and it's a lot of fun. And this was one of the first ones where there was the public watching, and it made for a wholly different experience. I watched young kids go up to these sim race drivers, asking them to autograph their shirts. It's not a replacement for motorsport, and I think that's the point. I think it's a way to get people involved in other things, and maybe they'll get more involved in real-world motorsports and more interested in it, or maybe not. Like, I think this can be its own interest, and it's a fun little thing. I talked to Genesis. Their driver was there for the Manufacturers Cup, and I drove a Genesis down there as part of this. We'll have an interview with them later on in the month, but it's interesting to see how much brands support this approach to digital motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it or leave it, it's the number one name in it. I mean, is it the best one? Probably not to the real racers like iRacing and whatnot, but Gran Turismo is the most recognizable name. I mean, the movie alone made more people aware, so I can see manufacturers wanting to get on because kids love video games. It's funny, again, where I am, there's an iRock revival this week, which I'll get into later, and I kept seeing this iRock shirt. I was like, man, a lot of people support the iRock revival, and I bought it. And then I realized it actually says I race on computers, and it's for sim racers, and they're wearing that shirt. And I was like, oh, never mind.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we should move on. So we'll have a quick break, and when we come back, since I'm not in the country, Kyle will be talking to Chevrolet about the Equinox EV.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With the parts you need at the prices you want, and with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, they're guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we have another special guest on the show, and I'm just going to let them introduce themselves before we get into the questions.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Mark Allen. I'm the Global Vehicle Chief Engineer at General Motors for the new Equinox EV.
Excellent. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Oh, not a problem at all. Happy to do it.
So, before I get into the question, I'm just going to say I do have an Equinox booked next month, maybe early September to drive. So I'm very much looking forward to it because I'm slowly making my way through all of the Ultium models. So
I tell you what, we couldn't be prouder of the car, and I'm really excited to have you get into it and really excited to get your feedback.
Excellent. So to start, we know that Equinox is one of the electric vehicles that hopefully will finally break into the mainstream consumer base, right? Because you had the Bolt before, and that was a really great, affordable, approachable model. So we were wondering, since you're going down closer to that price bracket again, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges to break through to non-traditional EV buyers?
Well, the simplest thing is, and the most obvious thing is the range anxiety. People that don't have any expertise or experience with EVs are very, very likely to be adverse or concerned about it, right? When you get into this segment, we're talking about compact SUV. It's the largest segment in the world. It's the largest growing segment in the world. It's the broadest segment in the world on every continent in every country. And so when you move into this category of vehicle, you're competing with mainstream vehicles and mainstream buyers. You're not targeting early adopters and people that are willing to take a risk. And so the best way to approach that is to not worry about trying to make a really good EV or a really good niche EV. The way to approach that is to make a great compact SUV that just happens to be electric.
That's something that we've actually said for a few vehicles that we've reviewed over the years is, the most impressive EVs aren't impressive because they're EVs. It's because, it's just a really good vehicle at whatever it was meant to do.
Exactly. That's the best thing you can offer the customer, is that the vehicle do exactly what they expect it to do when they expect them to do it. The only difference is they're plugging in to get their fuel versus going to the gas station. But everything else about the operation of the vehicle in their day-to-day life should be the same as what they're used to. And that's what we feel we deliver with the Equinox EV.
Well, so I guess, that leads in pretty smoothly into the next question, which is, when it comes to Equinox EV, who do you see as being the typical customer? Because it is such a broad market.
In order to be effective and in order to be in order to broaden the horizons, in order to get to an all-electric future, a 000 future, you have to break into the mainstream, and compact SUV is in the heart of that. So we're not targeting the EV buyers. We're targeting all of the compact SUV buyers, those that look to an affordable, reliable vehicle with a lot of value that fits the utility and the drivability in this space. That's who we're looking to target with this vehicle.
Makes sense. So since you also have a new Equinox in the same segment, the ICE version, why would you, since they don't share really any parts, how important was it to keep that name for this segment?
Well, what we're doing is leveraging 20 years of history with the Equinox. And the Equinox is a high volume, high value vehicle with a fantastic reputation for quality, reliability, and I'll say it again, value. You look at all the metrics, whether it's JD Power or any other quality metrics, the Equinox is right up at the top of the range for affordability, value, reliability, and quality. And so when people look at the Equinox EV, you talked before, how do you get people into an EV that wouldn't ordinarily consider it? Well, one of the ways to do that is to leverage a name that evokes that history, 2 decades worth, since 2004, of quality, reliability, durability, and value. And that's what we're leveraging with this. It's in the same segment, but let's face it, not all vehicles are all things to all people. People have different lifestyle choices that might push them to an ICE vehicle, or an EV could be perfectly adequate. So we look to bring both of those buyers into the dealership and have them choose.
It's it's always fascinating to hear that from each different automaker, because as I'm sure you're aware, some are doing your approach and keeping a name for an EV, and then others are very distinctly keeping all their EVs separate names. And that is what you said makes a lot of sense. You might as well leverage this reputation that you have. And I mean, we're seeing that with Silverado EV, Blazer EV, all of them.
I think it depends on where you're coming from. We're extremely proud of the heritage of the Equinox and what that name represents and what it represents to the public and our buyers. And that's why, we rely on it to convey that quality message.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So we're talking about the hugest segment, the fastest growing segment. I know you can't say all of them. So who would you consider as the main competitors for something like Equinox EV?
Well, when you look to the EV space, you obviously have to look at Tesla Model Y. That's the high volume player in this segment. There's no question about it. You've also got the Nissan Ariya, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and the VW ID4. But then when we go broad market and we look beyond EVs, then it's the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, the Ford Escape. These are high volume, high quality vehicles that are major players in that segment. And we'd like those customers to be cross shopping the Equinox EV as well.
So that's something that we've brought up at new car launches and that sort of thing, where a lot of brands do kind of keep their competitor set as EV or ICE only, depending on whatever model they're debuting. Are you seeing that we're getting to that breaking point where now you do have to just consider all forms of propulsion, or do you think most buyers will still be in the market for EVs already?
I think we're kind of at that point where we don't know. But if you don't set yourself up to be competitive with the ICE vehicles, then you'll never be there. If you set yourself up to only be competitive with the EVs and only priced with EVs or at the upper end of those segments, then those are the only customers that you can ever hope to get. So by targeting the heart of the compact SUV market, both ICE and EV, we have the opportunity to bring those customers in. And as EV volumes go up, more of those customers are going to have to cross that line, and we want to be prepared. We want to be the first to the table with a crossover EV that targets all of those competitors.
That's a smart play. I appreciate that, because that's, we all have the people who are sort of on the fence that we know, right? And so at some point you have to just start targeting those folks.
You got to put your toe in the water.
Exactly. So we talked about it a little bit earlier about how range anxiety and those sorts of things, the barriers to EV ownership. And so the last question I have for you is kind of a big one of, buying an EV is just one step. So is GM offering post-purchase support in terms of home charger allowances or credits? And if so, can you expand on that for our listeners?
Well, relative to credits and home charger, no, we're not. The vehicles do come equipped with a dual voltage charger, a portable charger that will do 7 kilowatts on 220 volts or lower on 110. But we do offer EV concierge as well as OnStar. So if they get stranded for some reason, if they want help navigating through the menus or help with the operation of their vehicle, there's a 24/7 service that's available to them that they can call, and that's available.
It's good to know. I will say that the in-car navigation, being able to easily track down chargers is a pretty important selling point.
I'm glad you like it. We're really proud of the Google built-in system and how integrated it is across the other parts of your life, and how across all of our Chevy products, ICE and EV, you'll be looking at that same interface. All the ways you operate the vehicle will be very, very similar across all of our products. That'll bring comfort and familiarity to the buyers.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. So I know I said that was the last question, but I just have a surprise one now, just because
Sure.
it came. With how Equinox ICE is kind of branching out for this new generation, without talking future product, I know that line. But do you see the market sort of becoming a little more accepting of more diverse EV entries down the road? Do you see them expanding into more off-roady kind of segments, more specific trims for people's needs down the road?
Absolutely. I mean, as the volume of EVs goes up, manufacturers will have to reach into broader segments and even narrower corners of those segments. If you're going to make a full-size truck and be competitive, you're going to probably have to offer off-road packages. If you want to compete with ICE across the board, you're going to have to offer the same variety that ICE offers. Now, when will that come? We're going to let the customers and let the market tell us when the appropriate time is to go into those areas.
Makes sense. Well, Mark, that's everything that I have. We covered a lot of ground in a very good time. We're very efficient.
Thank you very much, Kyle. It was my pleasure.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a break here, and we'll be back with more of the Auto Guide Show. Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Okay, everyone, let's take a minute and talk about the one that got away. The vehicle you once owned and for whatever reason had to get rid of, and to this day fully regret ever doing so. For me, it's my Subaru SVX. It was a 1997 model, which was one of the last years it was ever sold here. It was black on the outside and it had the beige leather and suede interior. It was in amazing condition for its age because it was just a one-owner vehicle. The interior was near flawless. The paint was pretty good considering it was about a 20-year-old car when I got it. I just loved everything about it. I loved the quirkiness because I love oddball cars. I love the window within the window, the power button on the gear shifter, the way the dash was laid out and you could hide the radio behind the fake wood panel. The flat six was just so smooth and it was all-wheel drive, and although it wasn't overly quick, it still had enough power. The problem was, within a year of buying that car, I ended up selling it because I got a great deal on another vehicle. And to this day, I regret doing so. Part of the reason I sold it was, although it was in great shape, it wasn't perfect and there were things that needed to be fixed, like the air conditioner, reservoir, some bearings, and other bits. And back then there was no eBay guaranteed fit program, so finding parts for such a rare 20-year-old car was not easy. Luckily, I sold it to someone who not only cared for it, but took the time to fix it up, and every once in a while I do get to still see it, and I still regret ever getting rid of it. I am constantly online looking for a new SVX because now I have a system that I can find parts for it, but I haven't come across one that's both in the right condition and the right price range. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. All right, welcome back. It's time for our weekly F1 segment. We have Colin Wood back with hopefully some new news, rumors, or other bits of information.
Always rumors, Mike. Good to be back. It's crazy that you think at some point the rumor mill could like slow down, but it never does. I guess there's a whole like industry in England that's built around this. But maybe we'll move briefly from. I feel like lately we've been talking a lot about driver rumors to more of the team level or engine level discussion. So the craziest news right now is this discussion that there's a potential tie-up between Haas and Toyota. That Toyota might be looking to come back to Formula One. I guess the way it sounds, all the discussions are that it wouldn't be like a works team. Although actually, I think if Toyota was smart, if they really want to come back, they should just buy Haas and come back, or just come in as a separate team. But it sounds like they would be some sort of like a high level partnership where they'd kind of get, naming on the car, kind of like how like Alfa Romeo's on the Saubers, that kind of an idea, in exchange for, Toyota has some very impressive, racing facilities in Cologne in Germany, in particular, where they, built their, WRC cars and I think their like Le Mans cars as well. So there's a potential tie up there. A day after that news broke, Haas then also confirmed that they've signed on sort of their long-term partnership with Ferrari until at least 2025. So, could you have a Toyota branded Haas running a Ferrari engine? Anything's possible, right? We've seen weirder stuff in Formula One, but it's still pretty strange.
Like I was gonna say, I don't expect that they're coming with an engine. I fully expect it's like Infinity, when they used to have Infinity on the side of the Red Bulls back in the day, and like said Alfa Romeo, like not running their engines. And they could even word it so it's not like just Toyota, like they're like Toyota Racing Development or Toyota School, something like just something different. So
yeah, it could be like even their GR stuff, right, to push the GR performance stuff. I saw a weird post on Facebook from a guy at Toyota who is, always, he's not in PR, so he speaks more candidly about it, and he just sort of thought like, oh, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and we probably shouldn't be doing this. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's how you feel. So we'll see if it turns out to be true. I'd love to see Toyota back. I went and did a little digging, right? Like Toyota, I mean, if you recall, like back in the day, Ralph Schumacher and stuff, I mean, they were spending, it was always rumored they were spending the most out of anybody, or at least up there with the big boys, right? And they never won a race over like 9 different seasons. They got second, I think, like twice, but they never won a race. And it's just like, guys, it's not good.
Yeah, they and Honda, yeah, they just never really worked out. I mean, Honda's had success off and on at least, but Toyota, I remember too, it's like right after they finally got their Le Mans success, and everyone's like, oh, they're going to come in and take over. And they never did.
No, I know. It's weird. It's a strange sort of behavior. And I think like there was a lot of criticism back in the old Toyota F1 days that because they, I guess the original criticism was that they still try to run too much of it out of Japan. Whereas basically everybody else is in the UK, right? And then even then when they moved, I think it was still being headquartered in Cologne in Germany. And so they still sort of were reluctant to really immerse themselves in the British, the UK auto, F1 industry. And it seems like that's what you have to do, right? Especially because you can get people, it's easier to get top talent, like, again, I mean, I know it's close for us, but if you're an engineer in England, do you really want to move to Germany and work for,
Exactly.
I don't know. It's kind of strange. I'm sure in the current EU world we live in, I guess England's not in the EU or whatever, but that, it would be easier to move around than maybe it once was, but still you got to, uplift your whole family and stuff if you're doing that. So.
Yeah, F1's a thing where the manufacturer matters less than the team you build, which Toyota should kind of get, because that's the same with NASCAR. And they were quite successful. I mean, it seems like their efforts are sort of winding down now, but.
Yeah, but you're right. Like over the past decade, even 15, they've really done a lot in racing. Like they've been very successful. They've won Le Mans. They are kicking butt in WRC, right? Like NASCAR, like they're top cars all the time. Like they've really changed, and so maybe now finally is the time. But there's no discussion of this like big entry into F1, and I don't think I think Toyota's big enough that they don't care about everyone else is like the Andretti's. Oh, we want to get in when it's cool and sexy to be in Formula One now because it's cool. Toyota doesn't care about being cool. They're just like, we're going to sell good cars. People buy good cars. Don't need to be cool. Thanks. Must be nice. Yeah. So the other rumor was a lot of this engine discussion, which I know, I guess, as the 2026 rules come, things are going to change. But so there's this, I was surprised to hear, although maybe not super surprised, that especially with Flavio Briatore now sort of helping out at Alpine, there's a discussion that Renault or Alpine might not continue to use Renault engines, which means obviously that Renault wouldn't make F1 engines, but they were actually in conversation with Mercedes. So, which I could see something like that happening. I just can't see Renault sustaining a whole, engine works program unless they have customers. And then the flip side of that is that similarly, there's a discussion right now where apparently Zach Brown has admitted that McLaren was talking to Red Bull about their engines. So they'd stop using Mercedes and move over to Red Bull, which I guess by then will be effectively Ford powertrains. So it's a weird, mixture. We'll see how this all kind of washes out, right?
Yeah, like the Red Bull Hondas will be the Red Bull Fords, and none of us will ever know how much is that really going to be a Red Bull Ford, or is it going to be like the current engine just updated for the new regulations? But back to Renault, yeah, I remember we talked about this briefly a while ago with the new regulations, and we said, like, how can Renault make an engine if they're only going to have it for themselves? And when they used to be more of a competitor and they sold it to other teams, it made sense and they were good. And then once they lost all the teams, their engines just got worse and worse because they don't have the money to support it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's a
could totally see
snowball.
them being like, yeah, like Mercedes makes sense. Like something, an engine like Ferrari, Mercedes has nothing that competes closely to what they do. Just grab that and go.
Yeah, yeah, but you're right. It is like the snowball effect, right? Where things kind of so you're Renault, you lose the money coming from other other brands to buy your engines. So then you start to minimize your investment, which means you have less good engines, which means you have less of a chance of it's like it just gets worse. It's kind of like the I always like Martin Brundle when the F1 broadcast talks about how when you start driving slower on the sticky tires, that you actually fall out of the window of performance, and then you start going even slower because your tires don't have the grip, and it gets worse and worse, right? The less you push, the less grip you have, which is funny. It's almost like taking it easy doesn't help. So it's almost a similar analogy to what the heck's going on over at Renault's engine department. So yeah, it's weird. Maybe we should talk about it's long over now, so maybe nobody cares, but the British Grand Prix was like, you didn't see it, right? You actually missed that one?
Yeah, as a way, so I actually missed it. So I mean, I know what happened, obviously, but I wish I'd been able to watch it because it sounds like it was quite the entertaining one. I mean, there's been a lot of good ones lately.
There have been a lot of good ones. It just like the season is heating up, I guess, kind of as we head into a bit of the break soon. But like Mercedes has won 2 in a row now. Red Bull is certainly not the dominant team it was, and it's making for really exciting racing. And I think like we're even seeing a little bit of like Max having to be strategic about you don't want to go all in because this is one of those things of like if you watch like older seasons where it was super competitive, like 2009 or something, or like 2014 I think it was, where like you have all these different guys winning. It's like you don't actually need to win a ton of races to win the championship. You just need to collect a good number of points. And I think with Verstappen having dominated the first couple races of the year, he built up this huge buffer. And so if most of the rest of the guys just squabble amongst themselves, and trade wins here and there for the rest of the season, and Max can grab 1 or 2 here, he can still stay on top. So, but that was the race itself was, it had all the, changing conditions and everything. It was like legitimately good, I think, almost the whole way through. Often I find the races are, it's exciting start, and then you get in a long sort of tire saving strategy phase and pit stops, and then exciting ending maybe. But this one actually delivered on all the angles, and I didn't get to watch it live either. I was traveling and overseas, and I taped it and sat down and watched it, and was I actually unusually watched. Like lately, especially when Max wins, the second it's over, I'm like, boom, turn it off. Like I don't care about the podium celebration. I don't care about the interviews. But like I watched the interviews. It was you want to see about Lando wound up in third, and he was a little pissed, and just what Max had to say, and about Hamilton actually winning another victory and another record, 9 wins at Silverstone, I think, which is crazy. He's I guess he's still got it. Maybe Ferrari will be happy with him. So.
Yeah, he likes to win at home. So, but yeah, Max still has a pretty good lead on Norris in the driver's points. But I mean, if Norris hadn't crashed out that race, it'd be closer than I think a lot of people would have expected. I think it still is closer. Like people probably expected Verstappen to have like doubled second place, and that's not really the case. He's a couple of DNFs from making it interesting.
Yeah, and the more you qualify 5th, the better your odds of getting a DNF off the start are, right? Like being in the back of the pack or in the middle of the pack just creates chaos and creates problems for yourself, versus if you're out front, just the ability to not get caught up in other people's problems is good. So it'll be interesting. I think we have a solid season on our hands all of a sudden. So we'll keep watching.
This second half, there'll be a lot of more parts added because people have a couple weeks to develop them. So we'll see sort of what happens. I mean, Toto after the last race, which is really going to be 2 races ago when people see this, because the Hungarian will have already happened. Yeah. So who knows what will happen there. But he said, obviously, Mercedes is back with Hamilton and George winning recently. And I don't think they're back to what they used to be when they dominated. But yeah, how he said, like, I'm not 100% sure Red Bull's the best. Like McLaren, Mercedes, and even Ferrari at times seem to have more pace. It's all track dependent. It's just Max is so good. And I think Red Bull's getting a little caught out in like 2 years of they set the strategy. They could do whatever they want and they just won. Now they got to think like, oh, how do we get back to the old days of trying to out strategize our competitors? And I mean, Perez, you can see he's getting caught out on that a lot. He way
sure
down
is.
most of the time.
Sure is. And part of it's just like the having to think about that stuff, about even being strategic in a race. What tricks you have to pull out to make it to first. It seems that Red Bull still has a good sort of head on their shoulders. They don't, although I think they've like for example in this race, again you didn't see it, but the British Grand Prix, I think like McLaren made a strategic mistake. I think they made two, but they made one in they could have double stacked Norris and Piastri, and they didn't. They let Piastri go around for one more lap in the rain. And so instead of losing, like having him back off a little bit and losing like 4 seconds on a slower than what you'd like a double stack, they lost like 19 seconds, him driving around with slicks in the rain. And he wound up, I think, 5th or whatever in the end. And so like he could have very well been fighting for the lead as well. And they really, that was a dumb mistake. And as they were doing it, I'm like, no, guys, like double stack. That's what, like, there's some risk involved, but they had great cars. It was like everything was in their favor. I don't know. But sometimes, you gamble, or I think everyone admits sometimes you make the wrong call, right? And you got to live with it. So
I know the Drivers' Championships, the one people really follow, but the Manufacturers' Championship is going to get real interesting. There's not a big gap there because you only have one guy consistently scoring points now. Whereas early in the year, they're both like podium every race and they had a huge lead, but it's getting closer. So yeah, it should be interesting. But hopefully whatever happened this weekend was interesting, and then we get a little break and we'll come back to hopefully some craziness.
I'll be watching.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this week. We'll have some other topics to discuss during the off weeks, maybe some more discussions of best of or worst of. But until then, we will see you next week then.
Sounds great.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, so we're doing things a bit out of order this week. That's because our question of the week ties directly to our what's next. So as I've said, and those who are watching have seen, I'm not home. I'm actually in Lakeville, Connecticut, which is right by Lime Rock, because I'm here with Nissan Canada to watch the first ever Nissan Sentra Cup race outside of Canada. So they're bringing all the Canadian teams down to Lime Rock to sort of showcase the series and, maybe expand it down the road. So I drove my whole family because they're making it a family event. So we all drove down. And that leads to our question of the week. The Sentra Cup is obviously a one-make race. And all they do is rip out the interiors, put in a roll cage, and the other safety equipment you need. They give the front wheels 370Z brakes. And the rear wheels are drums for the base model that they use. So they replace those with the discs off the better models. And in Canada, the base Sentra, which the reason they're using it is it still comes with a 6-speed manual. So engines are stock. They put on exhaust so it sounds a little louder, so it sounds more motorsport-like, which half for the fans, half for the drivers, so they can hear what their engine's doing. But that's really cool. So question of the week is, what vehicle do you think have its own spec series in the same sort of vein? Start with you, Kyle. I got 2.
You've got 2. Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. How about I do one, then you do one, and so forth. Okay. So my first one, staying in the same sort of mold as the Sentra and ignoring cars that have done one makes like the Mini or the Miata. I'm going with the new Prius. The Prius needs to be a race car.
That was my first one.
Oh, really?
No, I agree, because it's so much, like, it looks cool. So it looked cool with liveries on it. It drives better and it's got more power and a better hybrid. Like, I think, like you would be promoting how good hybrid systems are. And I think they would make fantastic. I mean, it has no transmission really, so it would drone out there, but I still think it'd be a cool series. I fully agree with you.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm sorry for taking one of your picks. I guess you can go with one of your other ones.
Yeah, I'll think of something from left field. So my other one was staying with the promoting new renewable resources. Is I think there needs to be an Ioniq spec race, probably the Ioniq 5N, but that's also pricey. Like, even just take the better racing would probably be get the long range rear wheel drives. strip out the interior and everything and take off any sort of traction on it and let them have at it, you could probably get a good 15-20 minute race before they run out of charge. So I think that'd be fun. And it would show like EVs can go fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, you're working with the one with the best range. So in terms of a race, you'll get the longest out of that. It's rear drive, so there could be some fun antics. Yeah, I like that. That would be a blast.
Maybe the 6. It would probably look like a better race car. You could put a big wing on top of its 2 existing wings.
Oh man, 3-wing race car.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my other one. So while you do your second, I'll think of something.
Okay. All right. Well, so my second is, again, trying to stay more affordable, right? Because that's what we all want. I'm going to go with the RAV4. I know, but look, if it's the best-selling vehicle in North America outside of trucks, turn that sucker into a race car. Like, I don't see why not. It could be the hybrid, so the same reason we just gave for the Prius, but you know what? No, just leave it as the regular gas one. Just slam that thing to the ground, strip out everything. I think it would be really funny. Hell, if you can use the all-wheel drive system from the gas model, you could just make it rear drive.
No, I got a better idea. Use the hybrid and their front drive race crossovers, I guess. And that rear motor that's designed to help you at low speeds, you tune it so it's like a push to pass type thing. And every time your battery loads up, you can hammer it to get some extra speed, but then you got to wait for the car to build the battery back up.
Ooh, I like that. See, I think we've got a good idea. Toyota, if you're listening, like we'll happily come on as help.
Well, I was thinking crossover-ish too, but I'm going to completely change what the question is and not do a one make. But I've been saying for years that NASCAR or IMSA needs a SUV category. Like you could have CRVs and RAV4s and Equinoxes and Rogues. Like everybody makes one. You just got them. You know, the thing they're doing to the touring cars would probably fit in most of those cars. So it's not like you need to make some new technology. And these are the cars people buy. So it's the whole, race on Sunday or win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah.
So someone needs to make it. I mean, as much as we hate crossovers, just slam them down, put in the race engines, and let's go.
Heck yes.
All right.
I appreciate that. Yeah, let's. We're good.
Let's move on to what's next. So, as I said, I'm at Lime Rock for the Sentra Cup. It is actually a support race at this race. I mean, it's the reason I'm here, and I hope to interview a driver or two. We'll see what I can get. It's hectic. I mean, the drivers are taking every possible practice session. There's some open extra sessions, and every time you see all 16 cars out there because they've never driven this track in this car. So some have driven the track, but in rear drive touring cars. So it's a very different world. But the other races that are here are pretty cool. There's the IROC Renaissance. Like this is it. This is the one we've been reporting for like 2 years. So they have IROC cars. I think that they have every single IROC generation, and all they're missing are the Avengers because I think Dodge took them back and crushed them or something. But they do have not the Avenger, the Daytonas. I think Dodge took those back. They have an Avengers here though. They have Pontiac Firebird. They have all the Camaros. They have the early 911s. So they're doing exhibition testing, and they have like some famous people back in their cars, like Mark Martin's here. And then apparently tomorrow there's going to be an exhibition race. So I don't really know what that means, and it'll be interesting to see. I assume it's just going to be like a race, but like a Monterey Historic or a Goodwood Revival, like don't hit each other. But I'm really curious to see what is the fastest of their IROCs. Like, was it the later ones, which you think, or did they let them more loose in the 80s? So that'll be interesting. And then the big race is the Mustang SA2, sorry, TA2. Anyway, it's the one they used in the touring cars in North America for years. They're basically, it's a TA because they're Trans Ams.
Yeah.
So they're the Mustang body on the Trans Am shell. They're doing an all-star race. So I thought it was just an all-star race, but apparently I think it's actually part of the Trans Am series. So they're partnering up like a well-known famous racer who's retired or just doing whatever with one of the people. So we have like Ron Fellows, Boris Said, Ken Schrader, think Pruitt's here, Mark Martin, Labonte. Like there's just it's a mix of Indy. They're saying there's something like X number of NASCAR championships and Indy championships and Nürburgring 24 winners and Le Mans winners and Daytona winners. Like it's crazy. I know I'm not doing it justice of who's here because I haven't had a chance to look at the list, but that's gonna be fun tomorrow. Obviously, I'll be cheering on Ron, our local Canadian, but I'm really hoping him and Boris meet up on the track because the two of them have such a long history racing each other. So yeah. And as I said, I came in a Nissan. So since I brought a Pathfinder, so kind of compared to the race cars, but a long trip to have someone in the back seat, 8 hours. So I'll have full report on the Pathfinder, but just two things. It's very what you expect. Like I can't say much more on how it drives and comfort behaves, but I am at 407 miles, mostly highway. I'm averaging 60 miles an hour. I am getting 32.7 miles per gallon, which
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not doing any, like I'm on the freeway, I'm usually 70 or higher like everyone. So I'm not hypermiling or do anything. Like I was blown away at what I'm doing in this thing. So yeah, if that continues, and I'm going to try to really gauge a gas fill up to make sure the computer's not off. But that's what this is really doing at those speeds with only 3 people, but still that's impressive. This is a big vehicle, the big V6. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what have you been doing this week, Kyle?
Well, this week has been a lot of filming and long days because we were doing the affordable sports car comparison that we talked about the last episode with regular contributor Jeff Wilson. Also, Jerry Vo came to help judge, another AutoGuide contributor. So we had the Toyota GR86 Trueno Edition, the Subaru turbocharger noise, the BRZ ETS, the Mini Cooper S, the new 25 model, which is an auto only, so the only auto in our comparison, because the fourth car was the 24 slightly upgraded Mazda MX-5 Miata.
Yeah, I actually helped organize that, and I got this opportunity to cover this event, so I'm a little sad I missed it. But coming back from the rally and then going on this event and having a 3-day turnaround, it was best I wasn't involved. But I'm very jealous, and I'm interested to see your findings, which will probably take a couple weeks to get the video turned around. But yeah, I'm jealous.
Awesome.
But what's helping me, ease the pain is next week. I have a Subaru WRX TR/GT, depending on what country you're in, and you have a.
You have a blue Subaru, and I have an even brighter blue Toyota GR Corolla.
So they may not seem like likely competitors. I know we put the GR against the Type R Civic and Golf R, and maybe they're more lined up there, but Subaru doesn't have an STI anymore. And this is sort of this was the high performance Subaru, and then they brought another one. But pretty much this is it. They've given it sort of the STI braking and some suspension tweaks on the WRX. So we're not going to go in and compare performance. Like the Toyota has more power, it's smaller, it's lighter. What I'm trying to see is during that comparison, I said the Corolla GR is like the modern STI. It's got a pretty basic interior that's not overly nice, and it makes some crazy mechanical noises, but it's so much fun to drive. And that's sort of explained every STI. So I want to see if this WRX with the TS, GT, depending on your country, captures that feeling at a more affordable price. Is this like the value version still, or is it more sophisticated and it's sort of the grown-up version, or is it not even in the league? So that's what we hope to find out. Yeah,
it's going to be a fun week. So I'm looking forward to it. And that means I think we're done here, Mike, because I just want to, get to next week.
Yeah, me too. Well, I want to go watch the races tomorrow, which is really 2 days ago when you see this. So if something incredible happened during any of those races, you're probably wondering why I'm not talking about it, because we're time travelers. That's pretty much it.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So we'll be back. I think next week we're both on at home, and we get back to normal life until you leave to go on vacation.
Yes. I leave our recording day, but late in the day, so we will still record together.
Sounds good. All right. Well, talk to everyone next week. This has been the AutoGuide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. Have a great week.
So long.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Your elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a driveway entirely its own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.